Let's judge these banned cards and see if they're worthy of being pulled off the list or not. Hello everyone, and welcome back to a series where we take a look at Yu-Gi-Oh's TCG ban list and discuss whether or not a card can come off of it with or without erratas. And like usual, we'll take a look at the comments from last week. From Tenebrae discussing the cards I had talked about last week. So let's kick things off with Scarecrow. It was primarily used to summon back a copy of Super Hemi Samurai Soul Piercer that had just been linked off into a search for it, so you can use Synchro. Real interesting thing that ban on Baron and Borolo Savage took a major bite out of it and could actually mean the Scarecrow could just come back because the deck. Yeah, that actually made me wonder why Baron got hit recently, not long after it got reprinted, and I guess that explains it. So I really don't have to. Well, I wasn't going to talk about Baron or the recent ones because they had just put them on there. Just the ones from before this recent one. But that does explain it. So, yeah. Summon Sorcerer Zoro, you receive errata. They combine both the effects into an effect activated on the summon link. So you must give a monster. Oh, okay. So it was downgraded in some sense. But then again, I think it got turned into a different. It feels like it got turned into. Oh crap! What was that other link monster that swamps monsters? So one of the jewel. Here we go. It was coordinate coordinarol. The gem transferer. She also does that too, but from a different archetype. So yeah. Supreme King, Serpent, Dragon, Starving Venom's piercing effect isn't any kind of problem. The effect is unrestricted name and effect, copying its inherent form. There's a slight chance that maybe it could come back, but it would be extremely hesitant. Maybe removing the alternate summon. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Removing like multiple summoning conditions might help, but I don't see good things coming from that kind of effect. More recent cards that copy have generally restricted to within their theme, like Therion, and those a lot more safe than what the Tyrant Neptune do. Yeah, I'm just gonna chuckle on that one. Spiral Master Plan's first effect is not hard once per turn. I believe I did not mention that. I want to say I talked about the last part, but I don't recall talking about the first effect. Master saw Spiral dominate what was effectively a zero's format. Master Plan was able to serve Spiral Mission, rescue, to dump it by Quick Fix or Magician's Souls. I did mention Magician's Souls, yeah. Then link off Master Plan, revive it with Rescue, then repeat with yeah, we need a hard once per turn to even come back. Yeah, I would honestly say like keep slapping hard once per turns on something that's like extraordinarily easy to get a full board like that and continue to special summon. So yeah. Also, with that out of the way, let's jump into today's cards. And with the first one, we have The Tyrant Neptune! Surprise, surprise. The Tyrant Neptune is a level 10 water reptile effect monster, and its effect is cannot be special summoned. You contribute summon this card by attributing one monster. This card gains the total original attack and defense of the monsters tributed for its tribute summon. When this card is tribute summoned, target one effect monster in the graveyard that was tributed for the tribute summon. This card's name becomes that target's name, and this card gains that target's effects. Yeah, this is why I laughed. The very first card we're talking about today happens to be the Tyrant Neptune. Yes. So, this card, through research, it was mentioned that it was used with the lyrical Lucinia Independent Nightingale, and it would gain 6,000 attack points. Yeah, and it would burn for 5,000 damage. Yeah. So, could this card come back? Well, if it were to come back, it would have to get an errata. There is no way around it. It would have to be monster type exclusive. Because I believe there are still a fair number of pretty damn strong water type monsters. So, restricting it to reptile will kill the overpotent ability of Tyrant Neptune. There are decent reptiles, but nothing near as strong as Independent Nightingale. So, without changes, no, definitely no. It would bring an emergency ban like within a week. With the errata of monster type exclusive, I can see it coming back at 1. But if like the pool of reptile monsters isn't that strong, I can see it coming back at 2 at most. So yeah. And with that, let's go into the next card. Here we go. Which is Tempest Magician. Tempest Magician is a level 6 Dark Spellcaster Synchro Effect Monster. The requirements are 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner spellcaster type monsters. And the effect is, when this card is synchro summoned, place 1 spell counter on it. Once per turn, you can discard any number of cards to place 1 spell counter on a monster you control for each card you discard. You can remove all spell counters on the field to inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each spell counter. Each removed spell counter. So, this card was heavily used during the time where spell counters were still a thing. I believe it was either one of the first or the first ones to implement spell counters was Breaker the Magic Warrior, and he had a hard single counter that was put on there. And the only use for that was to get rid of a back row card. There's also Blast Magician, which was nowhere near as strong as Tempest Magician. But Tempest Magician itself could burn for a lot. And there's no once per turn. Oh, wait, there is. Once per turn, you can discard any. Okay, so there is a once per turn, but it feels like it's a soft once per turn. Uh, Regardless, there's no limit on how many cards that can be discarded. Although I do not see any, I have not seen any decks run spell counters from what I remember. So could this card come back with no changes? Honestly, considering duels don't last too long, and you would have to get this card out like on the first turn without any negates. Maybe. It's a hard maybe. But if there was going to be any changes, I would say once per turn you can discard up to an X number of cards. And then I think that would be about it. Apart from, I don't remember if there was any cards that could. Oh, wait. I think this also could have been used alongside Magical Library. That sounds about right. Well, anyways, there would have to be a restriction on how many cards you can discard per turn if there were going to be any changes. But regardless, like I said, I haven't seen really any decks run spell counter cards. So maybe one either way. If one at most. So yeah. And with that, let's go into number 3, which is Topologic Gumbler Dragon. It is a Link 4 Dark Cyber's Link Effect monster, which requires 2 or more effect monsters. And its effect is, if another Link monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, while your opponent has at least 5 cards in their hand, discard 2 random cards, then your opponent discards 1 card. During your main phase, if this card is extra linked and your opponent has at least 1 card in their hand, you can make your opponent discard 1 card. Then, if they have no more cards in their hand, inflict 3,000 damage to them. You can only use 1 Topologic Gumbler Dragon effect per turn, and only once that turn. Blech. Okay, so Gumbler Dragon was banned basically because they didn't have it specified to only the owner's turn. It could be used during both players' turn, which means you could keep forcing your opponent to discard cards, thus keep burning that player for 3,000 damage. And at most, the duel would last 1, 2, 3 turns, counting both players as a single turn. Not to combine, but I mean you, and then your opponent, and then you. So could this card come back with no changes? I would say a heavy no. There's like, other than putting into account the extra link part, considering I don't know if anybody really has done that since Gumbler has been banned. No. Could there be any changes? Probably a couple, but I can't see this card coming back. If it does, it'd be 1. And the changes I would propose would be to drop the extra link sentence out. Keep the 3,000, but drop the extra link. Otherwise, it's just a beat stick with card removal. and to change only once that turn to once per your turn, which would drop its strength immensely. If not, I would say drop the whole entire line of extra link and then change it to once per your turn, not either player's turn. So yeah. And with that, I think maybe one. I know this card can be cheated out because Cyber's monsters are still somewhat prevalent. I'm not 100% as to how prevalent, but I mean, there's a whole archetypes dedicated to the Cyber's monsters. So, yeah. And with that, let's go into the final card for today. Tearlament's Kit Kalos. It is a level 5 Dark Aqua Fusion effect monster with the requirement of 1 Tearlament monster and 1 Aqua monster. And the card's effect is, if this card is special summoned, you can take 1 Tearlament card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can target 1 monster you control, special summon 1 Tearlament monster from your hand or graveyard. And if you do, send the targeted monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Tearlament's Kit Kalos once per turn. Alright, so this card special summons from either your hand or your graveyard. It also mills out a card, a Tearlament's card, from your deck and allows you to send it straight to the graveyard. And it also allows you to mill 5 cards from the top of your deck if she was sent to the graveyard by a card effect. It does not specify by which player, so that you can actually just pop your own Kit Kalos to get the effect. I don't remember if this was ever limited. I believe it might have been. If it wasn't, oh boy, I can see why it was banned. Being able to pop your own Kit Kalos to mill 5 cards, bring another Kit Kalos out, and extra fodder, and just keep doing the same thing over and over. Could this card come back? There would have to be heavy changes. It would, first off, drop the milling of the top 5 cards. That would drop its power quite a bit. It would have to specify what kind of Tearlament's card you can grab. So I would say you can take a Tearlament's magic or a trap, which would drop its power again, because, of course, you could grab a monster. There would have to be a different effect for the special summon, as far as like trading a card for a monster from the graveyard, which would be kind of a 1-for-1, but it would still, not be a straight up, okay, free special summon without having to do anything. So, I mean, honestly, without changes, definitely no. With changes, I don't know if anybody would be up to a butchered version of Tearlaments that much. So, who knows? This card could probably just stay on there. But it would have to be workshopped to hell and back as far as it being released from banned lists. But regardless, that is actually going to do it for me today. So next time we will look at the next set of cards. I know there's only one monster left, one regular effect monster left, and that's going to be a quickie. So with that out of the way, until next time, everybody, happy dueling.
It's time to duel!